So, in today's lab video, we will look at matrices and functions in MATLAB, what kind of special matrices are available in MATLAB and how one writes functions, passes multiple arguments, returns multiple values and so on.
Yeah. So, find A is another very important function, but it is often abused. You should not be using it in a lot of cases. You should instead just use logical indexing, right. So, one way to do is, let us say B is this. Now, I want to change every element that is minus 5 back to 0, right. So, I would first do B, find B equals 0, right, but I might as well have just done B equals 0. Like this will no longer work because there are no more minus 5's, but so in fact if you type this code out in the MATLAB editor, it will underline it and tell you that is a possible improvement you can make, because find is a slower function. So, it is a classic suggestion that MATLAB will give you, please consider using find logical indexing instead of find. So, whose I does not exist, right. But if I just type I enter, it becomes, now if I say whose I, or similarly J, right. So, avoid using, in general avoid using I and J in loops and so on. So, we say x equals I plus 1. Yeah, it's automatically I and J are automatically complex. So, if you said I equals 0 and then say x equals I plus 1, then things are sensible, but generally avoid it. You do not want to play around with I and J when it comes to MATLAB. Use other loop indices, and you can make inline functions, right. So, it is like for those of you familiar with Python, it is like lambda functions in Python, but this is just, so you can just say f of f equals inline will this work? So, x square, x is always a matrix in MATLAB. So, we are saying x squared, it has to be matrix multipliable, which means it has to have equal number of rows, it should be a square matrix, right. But this may not be what you want. If you want element wise squaring, you use something called the dot operator. You use x dot raised to, and now if you say f of 2 3, it will work, right. So, dot is quite important. So, these are all the small tricks, the use of the dot operator, use of logical indexing, and there is also a very important function called repmat to replicate a matrix in a particular shape. So, let us go back to this example again, right. So, this is the mean. What if you wanted to subtract the mean of every row, every column from the matrix to do some sort of normalization? Nope. So, that won't give you. So, how do you, I think now it actually works in MATLAB. So, you can do b minus b in b. It automatically works. It wouldn't work a few years ago in a previous version. You have to use something known as either BSX fun or repmat. So you should check these out. This is how, these are the tricks to make MATLAB code much faster. Instead of using it, you may have actually written a loop to loop through all the columns, find the mean, subtract the mean from the column, that kind of thing. Instead you can just do it in one shot. So sparse is very important. So you need to use it a lot of times. There are some tools which actually require sparse matrices only. You will find that MATLAB BGL, Bush graph library, that we will use for network analysis, accepts only sparse matrices as our input for any of the functions. So
but sparse is subjective, right? There is no clear boundary between above or fraction.
no, so that is true, but sparse matrix is basically a different data structure as far as MATLAB is concerned. So that will make your codes run more efficient as long as the matrix is really sparse. If you take a dense matrix and make it sparse, your code will run worse. But if you take a sparse matrix and you make it sparse, your code will run much faster. Okay, so then there are a bunch of special matrices that you need to know. So this is an identity matrix, EYE, right? And you can also have EYE is an identity matrix padded with more zeros. And of course RAND. I had format is useful to change how the format looks, and just format resets the format, but you can say format rat, which will keep things as rational. Just format will keep them as small floats. And so on. Right? And you can get the diagonal of a matrix like this, and this is how you create a diagonal matrix. Diag of a vector would give you a diagonal matrix. Of course, basic things, suppressing output, right? And if you say x, it will give you this big, like one new line, x equal to one more new line, one more new line. You can say just this x, and it gives you a much more compact representation. And you have sprintf and fprintf, which are similar to printf in C. Loading files, you can import data, you can even read XLS, you can save files, different types of formatting.
So what is the use of Cobra toolbox?
Cobra toolbox is for constraint based modeling.
For BGL?
It's for network analysis. So we will need BGL immediately. So BGL will give you things like this is an Erdős-Renyi matrix with, this is a random matrix with roughly 0.3% of the nodes, 0.3% of the edges. So you see there are 2994 zeros, roughly 3000 nodes. We look at what these models are tomorrow. you can invert a matrix. You can also use this what's known as a divide in MATLAB, right. So, it's a special matrix divide. So, try to look at this as B over A, right. Just like for Ax equals B, x equals B by A. So, here if you have Ax equals B as an equation, you can have x as B over A.
What's the difference?
Difference is it's there are I'm not sure if there is an immediate difference, but this is usually used. So, instead of actually computing the inverse, this might be solved more efficiently, x equals B by A. Yep, yep. So, I think this solves the equation without computing the inverse, something of that. Then matrix multiplication, element wise multiplication, and dot does element wise operations. Norm can compute various norms of a matrix. Then EXPM, as we did discuss earlier, gives you this, and you have single,
Does it compute?
huh?
What norm does it compute?
Different norms you can,
Oh, specifically.
yeah, you can have one norm, two norm, infinite norm, so on and so forth. You have eigenvalues, Cholesky decomposition and so on. This is for polynomial functions. I think I would skip some of these, but I do like this command. So, you can do I do not know if anybody recognizes these numbers.
Yeah, man. How much? Unit circle.
Cube roots of unity, right, and this is basically done from a matrix eigenvalues of the companion matrix of this polynomial. This is a polynomial x cube plus 0 x square plus 0 x minus 1 equals 0, and if you produce the companion matrix for that,
So what's a companion matrix?
it is that matrix for which the characteristic equation is the polynomial.
Okay.
Oh, correct.
So, lambda cube equals 1.
It's not unique, right? Different matrices can have the same characteristic polynomial.
Yeah, so like the simplest matrix.
Like Jordan matrix or something.
It's called actually a companion matrix. So, companion matrix of polynomial with, I don't know, this is very not a very helpful help comment. Right. So, basically, so solving any polynomial is just the same as computing the eigenvalues of the companion matrix. It's quite simple. Then one very useful thing in MATLAB is what's known as a cell. Right. So, you basically say A equals 1, it is now a cell, right, and the good part is you can say A equals 1, you can have different kinds of things mixed and matched within cells, and you can say A3 equals you just mix all kinds of things within a cell. And some very useful MATLAB functions are for element in cell run function given by pointer. So, you have cell fun and different kinds of such useful things, and you also have symbolic. is completely symbolic. So it is,
So you can store it and then run things,
Calculate
you can algebraically calculate, you can have cancellations and things like that. We will actually see this is useful when we look at constraint based modeling, because you want to usually compute this matrix, a product of a stoichiometric matrix and a bunch of vectors.
and symbolically solve differential equations.
Solving differential equations is quite tough, I am not too sure. Okay, and then you have a bunch of things for working with figures. CLF clears a figure. Most useful command is close all. It will close all the figures that are currently open, right? Because invariably you will have a loop wherein you keep generating multiple figures and so on. And so let us say figure, then plot, you now have a line, right? And now have this, but the old line is gone. So instead you say hold on, yeah. So this line of course is really here, whereas BO will give you blue circles. So you can learn those shorthands. RX will give you red crosses.
This thing will give triangles.
Caret.
Caret.
Yeah. No. Where does the yeah. Okay. What are the others? So there are subplots, wait for button press, easy plots. Then this is important: title, X label, Y label, color map, and sparsity. I have shown you all this already. Right? This is how you write a function. Function A is, so this is very different from many other languages. What is the okay? Let's do this exercise. Okay. So now if I say, will this work? It didn't, because I deliberately had a typo in the file name. So the functions are addressed by file name, not what you call them here, right? So I could still have this ABC, save it as mymax.m, and then say sorry. I should have suppressed this, and if I mouse over this, function name ABC is known to MATLAB by its file name mymax fix. The correct way to write the code of course is this, but you should just be aware, so you can have these weird kinds of errors when this creeps in. Okay. So, you can also have scripts. Scripts are basically just pulled up MATLAB statements, like a long bunch of MATLAB statements. The best part is in MATLAB you can have multiple arguments directly returned, multiple values directly returned. So, something like function mean, median, mode, variance equals statistics of x. So, whatever is the last set value of mean, median, mode, variance, it will be returned. You do not even need a return function in MATLAB. We will not worry about integrating ODEs and so on, or some of the other toolboxes. So, these are some of the basic things I wanted to show you.
So, I hope you had a brief introduction to matrices and functions in MATLAB today. There is so many very good books on the topic. There are many interesting courses on this topic that you can find online. In the next lecture, we will look at a very interesting aspect of not just MATLAB, but computing in computer arithmetic in general, notably floating point arithmetic, where I guarantee you will have many surprises.